All right. Today, I am super excited to finally be speaking virtually face to face with Ernesto Segismundo. Did I say that correct?
Oh, you did. Dang
Oh.
it. Dude, say it 10 times. No, I'm just kidding.
Nailed it. Awesome. Yeah, I'm so excited to chat with you. We were just talking before I hit record here. I have been a fan of yours, a follower of yours, probably since I started working in this space. I believe it was Kate and Katie from Private Practice Startup who first mentioned your name, and I followed you on social media, and your Instagram is very entertaining and also inspiring, and was really just excited to invite you and have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, sir.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's been a while. I mean, you said what, 3 or 4 years, and this is the first time we're talking to each other face to face.
I think it's the first time we're talking. I can't remember if we've probably exchanged, Facebook comments or whatever here and there, and we both it's kind of the way it is online. You kind
Oh
of
my
you
God,
see
yeah,
names, you interact with people and stuff like that.
yeah.
And for the longest time, I was like, I need to talk to that guy, but I don't know what happened, but we finally made it.
Yes, and in 2020.
Yes, in
How
2020.
ironic is that?
If you accomplish anything in 2020, it's pretty amazing.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, let's get into a little bit about who you are.
Mhm.
So I want to hear a little bit more about your story, and for folks who don't know who you are, can you just let
Mhm.
us know basically what you do right now, and then
Yeah.
take us into a little bit of your journey of how you got to be doing what you're doing right now.
Well, in this day and age, I literally call myself a serial entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And, I started my journey as a therapist, in 2003, I believe, and I got licensed in 2011. I could be wrong with that. But I do a few things. I'm actually not only a retired psychotherapist, I recently retired
Wow.
about 3 months ago or so. And I am now I've been a videographer specifically for therapists since 2013. I discovered videography and the world of video and social media marketing around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And around that time, I developed a group practice. So I currently have a group practice here in Southern California. So I do all of those things. And now, just in the past few months here, since declaring to the social media world that I've now a retired psychotherapist, I now do individual coaching for the not your typical psychotherapist. So those therapists who have dominated in the world of therapy, but they want to do much more things like take their entrepreneurial world to a whole new level. Entrepreneurs or therapists, they want to do things more than just staying in the four walls, right? So I want to be that mentor and support, and I've really uh taken on that reign
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, I think when I first started checking out your stuff, I remember it was just like Ernesto's the video guy, and so that's kind of how I knew you. Like he's the video guy, and so it's been fun to really to follow you, especially on Instagram, and see just first of all the range of books that you read. It
Mhm.
seems like
I
you're reading
love
a new book like every day, but
yes.
it's always so focused on business development,
Mhm.
entrepreneurship. Uh, improving yourself is just kind of the gist of what I see. And so it's just been really inspiring.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm learning, and I've learned for a long time, and I'm a big advocate for therapy because am not only a retired psychotherapist and been in the world, but I also get my own counseling, and it's been very consistent throughout the years. And one of the things that I think entrepreneurs, especially therapists, miss is really being a champion for self improvement.
Mm,
And many clinicians are not trained in the area of entrepreneurship or even the growth of business marketing or business ventures. And so therefore, when they go into the world of entrepreneurship and putting on a business, I
right.
mean, that comes with a lot of roadblocks. It comes a lot of trials and tribulations, so it's
Oh
almost
yeah.
as if I'm a representative, and many of us are representative of that type of journey. And my social media sees that. I am all about the non-shiny object syndrome, where owning three businesses like I do at the same time and doing all of these other things, it looks glamorous from a filtered social media lens.
Right.
But behind the scenes, there are tears, there are stresses, there are uh, an insane amount of Kit Kats put in your mouth. It's like one of those things, right? So
Yeah.
I want to be able to guide many therapists who are aspiring entrepreneurs to go
Yeah.
out into the world and do things that are different.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for that. I think that that is a good segue into what we're talking about. Today
Yeah.
we're going to be talking a little bit about entrepreneurship, overcoming imposter syndrome. And I think, like, to your point of what you just said about, a lot of times social media can be this filtered lens of, I'm a great coach, I've got it all together,
Hmm.
but we're all in a process. And I know, and I'm excited to talk about this topic because as an entrepreneur myself, I've gone on a similar journey of
Hmm.
coming up against those mental roadblocks and the mindset things and imposter syndrome. And it's like, yeah, you want people to trust you. Like, I want to be this coach, but at the same time, there's a lot of crap that I'm working through and learning myself.
Yeah.
So where do we start with this topic of imposter syndrome?
Well, first of all, let me just say that there's good news and bad news. The
Okay.
good news is that we all struggle together with imposter syndrome. If you are a creative entrepreneur and you are gifted and you are forward thinking and you think bigger picture, you will meet this thing, this imposter syndrome.
Mm.
The bad news is we all have imposter syndrome. Some of us are more aware of it than others. The
Yeah.
more aware you are of that imposter syndrome, the more you develop an attachment to it. And let me just explain a little bit about this. But let me go back, first of all, what imposter syndrome is.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome is actually a real thing. It was discovered in 1978 by two doctors. The study came from women who were highly educated, highly motivated, and they had tons of experiences backing up their expertise. However, they felt a sense of insecurity. They felt a sense of feeling like they are a fraud. So the imposter syndrome identity basically is people who are gifted, people who are inspirational, people who are um, um, uh, educated and have a lot of dreams. They feel like with the imposter syndrome, they are going to be discovered as frauds. And this is a thing. And many actors, actresses go through this, and entrepreneurs as well too. And now it extends to everyone. We found out that not only women are going through this, but everyone now in the entrepreneurial world.
Right.
The reason being is that when you step outside of your comfort zone and you go into the world of competitive entrepreneurship, you will be met by your own shadows, which means all of the things that causes you to be fearful, to question, to doubt, and to feel like you're smaller and you are not good enough in going after your goal. It's a very sinister uh, parasite that is within many of the gifted clinicians. Now, here's the other thing. If you are struggling with imposter syndrome, the good news is you are on the right track. That's how you kind of look at it, right? Because
Yeah.
every time you feel that imposter syndrome, that means you are breaking the glass to becoming the most amazing individual and the most amazing entrepreneur there is. So That's the good news. Once you feel that insecurity, once you feel that imposter syndrome, find that little hint in your soul that says, you know what? I'm glad that I'm struggling with it, because you know why? I know that I'm getting either above or getting close to my zone of genius.
Right.
So that's how I see this.
Yeah, that's a really good reframe. That reminds me of I forget who wrote it. You're probably familiar with The War of Art.
The war of art. Uh-huh.
Yeah, when he talks about fear, and it's like if you're coming up against fear and these things like imposter syndrome, it shows you're on the right track. Because if you were sitting around not taking chances, not dreaming, not going after your vision, then obviously there wouldn't be a lot of hurdles along the way, because you're just coasting along through life.
Absolutely.
So that's a great reframe. When you come up against these things, or you're like, why am I dealing with this? Like, oh, here we go again. I'm feeling this way. Like, kind of going back, like you said, sort of peeling back the layer there and going back underneath and realizing this is actually a good thing.
Yeah, and not very many of us see that, because unfortunately in this day and age now, we are so adverse to uncomfortability,
Yeah.
right? We are addicted to safety. We are addicted to emotional safety, that we have to create this bubble around us. Now, as a first generation Filipino American who grew up in Hawaii and have grandparents who worked in the sugarcane fields, my mom was a housekeeper. My dad was a dishwasher. I've seen how difficult it is to bring in money, right? To work. I know the value of hard work. And I think one of my, oh, you're gonna get me start, you're gonna get me ranting here. But one
Let's
of the
do it.
things that one of the things that I am uh, um, so uncomfortable with seeing on social media, especially with our colleagues in the mental health world, is that we are developing this overly safe environment, and we are fearful to experience hardship. You
Hmm.
know, we want emotional safety, we want psychological safety. That's not what I'm talking about. But it swung the other way, that if anything that we feel that's uncomfortable or strife or something that is difficult in our world, in our lives, we stray away from that, because our
Yeah.
brains cannot decipher what is danger and what is a struggle. And
Hmm.
it doesn't decipher that. So one of the things that I teach clinicians now when I do my coaching is, look, sometimes that struggle is what's going to build your character. If
Yeah.
anyone tells me, or if I see on social media that people paint this easy path to entrepreneurship or business building or anything like that, I know for a fact that that's fake. I believe that I'm successful in all of my three businesses. But to get here, holy crap.
Right.
It's really uncomfortable to even be here at times and be in my head with all of these things. So, I want people to know that the people that you see on social media who's successful, and I'm doing a quote sign here, right? You got to know that they've been through fire.
Yeah.
You cannot be a sharpened iron or sharpened sword without being in the fire and getting hammered over and over again with an anvil. You just can't.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that there's so much danger in that sort of comparison trap,
Right.
where you see these people that, yeah, maybe they are making millions, and they launched their online course and they made, you know 200 grand, in that first month. And for me, to be honest, I've had an online course. I have a few courses that I've launched, and that's been a challenge and it's been a struggle. But you keep going back to that drawing board and keep making it better and better and better. And understand too that those people who've had those launches, like, they have been sowing seeds for maybe 5-10 years, who knows,
Mm-hmm.
until they've like really mastered their ideal client. They've really gotten to, there could have been, hundreds of other failed
That's
launches
right.
that you haven't seen or you haven't heard about.
Hmm.
There's so much. I know I struggle a lot with that comparison thing. It's just so easy to be like, oh wow, they did that, how
That's
come
right.
I can't do that?
That's right. This past week I was in Maui. I don't know if you saw my Instagram, but I was in Maui. I was
Yeah, I didn't know
posting
where
a
you were located because you're always in Hawaii. I always see Hawaii. So
Yeah, yeah, one of the things that I am now in a mission is, unfortunately, the world of mental health has made busyness too sexy, right? Filling your calendar, booking your calendar solid with appointments and work. And one of the things that I'm straying away now from is creating this sexiness in the world of or being busy.
mhm.
So I was in Maui hanging out, and I was in Maui on business trip. It was, yes, it was business trip. Just because I was posting things that I was on the beach and having Mai Tai, it was business. And so a few people private messaged me and even text me and say, how do you develop this type of lifestyle where you are traveling? Well, one, you have to be creative. Two, it's not easy.
Mhm.
To this day, it is not easy. I just project this idea that you can be creative and develop your own lifestyle, but I'm also very, very genuine when I say that businesses, running a businesses and maintaining a business is not easy,
Mhm.
right? I've worked hard to lounge on the beach, and I'm working harder to make sure that my life and my goals and my values, my freedom is intact. That is what
Yeah.
I'm, trying to communicate with all of the things that I do. Now, with the imposter, going back to the imposter syndrome, that will come up. People will project their own fear and anxiety when they see someone on the beach and they go, wow, this guy's traveling a lot, or what does he have that I don't have,
Right.
right? We're all in this together. The imposter syndrome will come and haunt you uh, um, every time when you not only compare yourself to other brands, but also seeing how difficult the road is to running a business or even
Yeah.
multiple businesses.
Yeah. Right. So, what are some things that we talked about, kind of understanding, like being okay with, like when that imposter syndrome comes up? Number one, that's okay. You're kind of on the right track there. Uh, what else can you do when you feel that coming up in your life? How can you kind of develop, kind of the word that comes to mind, develop a more positive relationship with these feelings and with imposter syndrome,
That
so that it serves you?
Yeah, you mentioned the key there, which is relationship. That's the key word, is developing a relationship. And imposter syndrome, the way that I view it, is a part of myself that is always going to be coming up. I tried as much as I can to not let imposter syndrome come up, right? But it's just a thing. If you're a gifted entrepreneur and you are thinking big, that will come up. So the first thing you have to do is identify what type of relationship you have. And I always talk about the relationship models, right? You've got the disengage, you've got the secure, you've got the avoidant attachment. So all of those quadrants, right? You kind of examine where you fall within those four quadrants of attachment. And so once you identify that, then you start developing relationships. So let me give an example. So anytime the imposter syndrome comes up, so when I'm doing a course or something that I'm launching and the imposter syndrome comes up, and the voice that comes up says to me, you're not good enough to do this. Who are you to be doing this? Do you remember
Hmm.
that one person that did this and they were very successful? Do you want to play against that? Do you want to play up against that? Who do you think you are? So now when those voices come up, instead of me going, shut the hell up, don't talk to me, that avoidant,
Yeah.
conversation,
Right.
what I do is, I'm wondering where is this coming up? What's going on inside of me? What is my fear? Can you tell me a little bit more? Talk a little bit more. Let's talk about this. So it's almost as if this conversation in my mind, right? To
Mm-hmm.
just allow that fear to speak, to allow that imposter within me to speak. Because the more you mute them, those voices in your head that tell you you're not enough, the louder and more intense they become. Just
Mm.
like in therapy session, when a client is not heard, when they're gaslighted, when they feel like they are not given a chance to speak, the intensity and anxiety and the fear and the loudness comes up. They start
Right.
fighting to be heard, and it's uncomfortable to hear. So as a clinician, you kind of have to step back and allow the person to be heard. You
Right.
are not there to investigate whether it's truth or not. To them, it's true. So therefore, you have to walk with them. So, we all know how it feels like to be gaslighted. And that imposter within, when you gaslight them or you try to mute them, the louder and intense they become as well. So they will make you
Right.
pay if they're not hearing, if you're not letting them to be heard. So that's
Right.
one thing, to sit and to be aware and to have a conversation. Okay. I'm going to go into the second thing, which is action oriented.
Okay.
Many clinicians wait for the voice to not to be silenced. Okay. I'm all about movement. You have to move. So let's say you wanted to do a course and all of these imposter voices comes up. You have a conversation and then enough. You start moving. You start doing little things towards your goal. If you want to do a course, for instance, you want to launch a course, you get a piece of paper, you write down your idea, step one, right? Instead of doing a big thing like learning the technology of running a course, you do the
Right.
small things
Yep.
getting towards that path.
Yeah.
So action oriented ways to address the imposter syndrome is the way to go. Just like with trauma, you don't sit around. I don't know about any clinicians out there who's hearing this, but the way that I work is through movement, right? Just like EMDR, it's movement approach. The bilaterals. So instead of sitting down and talking about what's causing your trauma, you get up and move. You
Right.
do things. You start moving certain parts of your body. You start moving parts of the brain, right? As that's why EMDR, equine therapy, assisted therapy, is so effective in treating trauma, is because they're movement oriented. They're constantly moving.
Mm.
Same way with addressing imposter syndrome. You move, especially moving towards that bigger goal,
Mm-hmm.
right? The third thing to address this is do not do this alone. Whether it be mastermind classes, whether it be one-on-one mentorship, counseling, therapy, uh, coaching, one-on-one coaching, do not take on the imposter syndrome alone. Give that thought to someone else so that the both of you can kind of keep yourselves accountable and
Right.
bounce back ideas,
Yep.
but do not let that voice to stick in your head. Throw it at someone who supports you and go, you know what, that's not real. Let's talk about this. It's how to
Right.
get it outside of your head into a space where you can actually dissect that crap, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point, because I think I was fully tracking with the first two, like, okay, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense, But then when you get to that sort of accountability piece, and this is coming more from me. Like, I've been in masterminds here and there, and I'm kind of in this space right now where I think I need a mastermind, to be honest, in my own development and entrepreneurship. I've been kind of like looking around and kind of thinking, okay, who could I grab for this? Because that's the one thing that I know that I'm truly missing right now. And I mean, 2020 has been nuts, and so I think I've been kind of in sort of a survival mode for a while, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to 2021 is going to be different. What's that one piece? Like for me, it's that community, because I know that I've been in those places where you've got someone else who's either done what you're trying to do before, or is just familiar with your journey, and you're like, oh, I'm feeling this way, and this way, and they're like, that's not true. Just to have
Yeah.
someone else say that is so encouraging.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And when I run my masterclass groups, it's about 6 people, 6 or 7 people, and we run it. I run it for about an hour and a half, and we discuss what's going on. We make sure that we keep ourselves accountable. And I've run 4 groups already consistently, and I never go over 6 or 7 of them because I notice that everyone wants to have that type of support that you're talking about, right? And
Right.
so when I run these groups, one of the things that comes up that I notice is not about strategy. It's not about how can I get to my goal. It's how can I be empowered in this group? How can I be be reminded of my gifts and talents
Right.
towards my goal? And that's what a master class mastermind group is all about. I'm all about the hot seat, but I don't run my groups like that.
Yeah.
I don't do that, because you run hot seats. That's great, people can hear it, but people can also just tune out. It's like, hey, I'm not identifying with that, so I want people to have that chance. And I want to inspire people to just try to reach out to these, you want to call it group coaching, that does not have so many people in there. You want to not disappear in the group. You want to make sure that you're part of the community. So
Yeah.
small groups is
Hmm.
always good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm part of a website agency group that is a coaching program. And there's lots and lots of people in there, but I constantly see in the Facebook group, people will post like, hey, I want to start an accountability group, looking for like 3 or 4 other people, stuff like that. I think is really cool when you're speaking weekly with people who kind of get familiar with your journey and where you're at. And there's just so much encouragement and empowerment that comes from that.
Yeah, and you develop ideas as well too. So what imposter syndrome does is that it blocks your creativity part of your brain. It really does.
Mm,
Anytime anxiety comes up, the part of the brain that is attacked, okay, is the amygdala. Once the amygdala is overwhelmed, it doesn't, any of these electricity and any of these things that go through the frontal lobes and thinking about things and looking at things from a rational perspective is hijacked by the amygdala,
wow.
right? And so once the imposter syndrome inspires or provokes and evokes anxiety, the creative person will have a hard time engaging all the parts of the brain to get them to a place where they can be in their zone of genius. And this is proven through positive psychology and neuropsychology as well, where, if you want to really tap into your creativity, you want to make sure that the parts of the brain are not overwhelmed with anxiety.
Yeah.
So that's the other
Wow.
part that I teach, the brain science of this, is that to be creative. And you see this a lot, people do things out of panic,
Right.
right? They start doing things. In 2020, we have been a collective pool of panic,
Yes.
right? People are getting rid of their group practices because it's like, oh my gosh, how do I sustain this? People are putting money in places they shouldn't be putting money in. We're making decision based on our emotions,
Yeah.
right? And most likely our anxiety. And so therefore,
Yeah.
one of the things that I want to remind people is that get a group of people that can help calm you down
Hmm.
and get back to your creative juices. If you're feeling stuck, most likely you are struggling with an overworked part of the brain that is causing a lot of anxiety.
Mm. I feel like I'm in a session right now with you, Ernesto. I'm like,
I
oh
will send you
man.
a bill later on, so if you don't mind.
Yeah, just invoice me later on that. Oh, this is good. This is so applicable, and I'm sure many people are a little familiar with this stuff, but I think some people probably aren't at all. And I think that I mean, even what you just said is probably going to be a lot of aha moments for some people, especially after this year. You know, just all the fear and anxiety and the probably lots of overwork going on, trying to make
Mhm.
sense of all this and make things sustainable to get through this year.
That's right.
So this is great wisdom. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Is there
Absolutely.
any more that you wanted to share with the audience on this subject before we
Yeah,
wrap up?
absolutely. For all of you who are listening, and this is throughout the years of traveling and helping clinicians, you know, create their promotional videos and coaching them, is every time I have a conversation with clinicians, I can see glimpse of overt creativity. And there are times when that is um, that doesn't come out because of this imposter syndrome. And if you feel like you are keeping yourself stuck, there are always people there to help. You know, just talk to someone, just reach out to them and go, hey, I need some one-on-one here. Let's just bounce ideas. It doesn't even have to go anywhere. Just get whatever is in your head outside of your head
Yeah.
and give it to a professional, give it to someone that can bounce that idea off of each other, so that you can get to a place where you can uh, um, uh, be in your zone of genius. So, don't suffer in silence. I mean,
Yeah.
we hear that a lot, right?
Yeah.
Don't be a prisoner to your own head. Just don't.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on here, for chatting with me. It was so good. I feel like we could talk about this stuff forever. So maybe we'll have you back on. We'll dig in even further on this stuff.
I'll definitely be happy to. And thank you so much for having me and having people like me talk about this stuff, because it's something that is seldom talked about in our community, and
Right. Right.
it's really poisonous,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, where can people find you online? I already mentioned your amazing Instagram account that is always entertaining to me, but where can people find you online if they want to learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah, you guys can just Google Facebook and my name, and I have one account there. I am always looking to have friends on Facebook, and also my website, filmit.com. And, you can see some examples of the videos that I've done in the past. And if you're on my email list as well, I send out emails pertaining to marketing, video marketing, social media marketing, and just free content that's out there. So that's pretty much when you Google my name, I'm just unfortunately everywhere.
That's awesome. All right, Ernesto, thank you so much for being on today.
Aloha, thank you.